Chapter 1. Fishing. The morning mist lifts a glorious day unveiled just right for fishing.
"Whoa! Did you see that?"
Ben shouted.
"Larry, look! What is that?"
He continued yelling as he pointed to the edge of the riverbank. Ben and Larry were out doing what they always did on a brisk Saturday morning, fishing for bass. Even though they knew it was the wrong time of year and the wrong part of the river, they had heard reports from other fishermen down at the Elks Lodge that the bass were running earlier this year, and these two country boys wanted in on the action. For the past 2 weeks, it had been raining non-stop, and all the rivers in the Suwannee Valley were on the verge of reaching flood stage again, which they'd been doing on a much too frequent basis for the last 10 years. Being avid fishermen and confident boaters, though, the threat of rising waters didn't deter Ben and Larry in the least. They knew the time was ripe for catching a boatload of fish, especially since the rain had stopped falling sometime during the night. Heavy rains, they both knew, always brought the fish closer to the surface and easier to spot, making the sport seem almost effortless.
"It looks like an entire school of largemouth bass,"
Larry said, still staring off to his right.
"Only problem is they're all upside down. Dead,"
he added, with his mouth agape as he stared at the carnage. It was still quite dark out, since the sun hadn't risen above the early morning cloud cover yet, but there was enough light from the waning moon to see, even with the thick, foggy mist hanging low overhead. Surprisingly, the current, which had been dead still since they launched the boat into the river 20 minutes ago, rapidly picked up. Before either one of them realized what was happening, the boat made a rapid 180-degree turn, and they found themselves facing upstream, directly in the path of a 6-foot wave, which was something unheard of on the river. In fact, they both knew it was impossible. Yet there it was, aiming straight for them.
"Holy crap!" Ben shouted. "Get us out of here!"
Larry had been sitting at the stern of the boat, manning the small outboard motor, which he had shut off just minutes ago. But try as he might, it just wouldn't start. The more he pushed on the foot control, the more the engine sputtered and spit, draining the battery of its juice.
I'm trying,
Larry yelled, but it was no use. The engine just wouldn't crank over. Seconds later, as they both stared dead ahead, the huge wave suddenly split in two, and then it rushed past them on either side of the 10-foot bass boat. As they watched in stunned horror, the huge waves continued racing downstream, while splattering a misty, sulfur spray of water against their faces as it passed by them.
"Holy God Almighty!" Ben shouted. "I know we put down a case of beer last night, but I didn't think I was still drunk. Tell me you didn't see that, Larry. Tell me I was just hallucinating." "I'd sure like to, my man, but—"
Larry started, and then he coughed several times, trying to clear his lungs of the horrible odor. After he spit a huge wad of phlegm over the side of the boat, he used his shirt sleeve to wipe the foul-smelling moisture from his face. Soon he was breathing freely again. Once his eyes could clearly focus, he noticed the mist that had been swirling around their heads had vanished into the atmosphere. When he spotted a 20-foot trail of discarded plastic bottles, plastic grocery bags, aluminum cans, used feminine napkins, and plastic baby diapers floating past the boat, he drew in a sharp breath and went into another coughing fit. Ben saw it too, and seconds later they watched as all that garbage got swept up onto the riverbanks on either side of them. Just then, as if a magic wand had been waved across them, the motor revved up and the boat made another 180-degree turn. They were facing downstream again when, all of a sudden, they both heard an ear-piercing scream from somewhere high in the pine trees. The next thing they saw was a huge flock of doves splashing into the water just 10 yards behind the boat.